Good evening, everybody. I'm Kimberly Richardson. I'm a reporter with ABC Eyewitness News in New York City, and I am so excited to host this panel and moderate this panel for the next 60 minutes. I want to welcome you all to My Dance, My Voice. Black Hearts Are Burning. It's an incredible forum created by Manhattan Youth Ballet, which is a nurturing program that really plays an integral part in developing young dancers for professional careers. This will no doubt be the first in a series of really powerful, uplifting conversations with some of the most dynamic African American leaders in the world of dance. So welcome everybody. Let's start with Misty Copeland. Of course, she has broken so many glass slippers over the course of her career. In 2015, she was named principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater. Now, that made her the first Black woman to ever be promoted to that position in the company's 80-year history. Now, if you've been to an Ailey performance, you've seen the magic Matthew Rushin creates on the stage. He has choreographed 3 ballets for the company and is now Associate Artistic Director. Alicia Graf Mack is yet another Ailey treasure who has also been a principal dancer at the Dance Theater of Harlem. She's currently the director of the dance division at the Juilliard School. And the Ailey love continues. Clifton Brown joined the company in 1999 and worked very closely with the legendary Judith Jamison. He's also been a key figure with Jessica Lange Dance and Earl Mosley's Diversity of Dance. Clifton performed at the White House for President Obama and rejoined Ailey in 2017. Wisdom and plenty of pearls to share. Joan Myers Brown is the founder of Philadanco and IABD, which is the International Association of Blacks in Dance. Joan is not someone who waits to have things come to her. She builds them and then they come. She has established several organizations that support Black dancers and been recognized by many people, including President Obama. And Frederick Earl Mosley, founder of Diversity of Dance, Inc. He has collaborated and contributed to some of the most renowned dance institutions in the world. Mr. Mosley strongly believes diversity and life experience are essential when it comes to a dancer's journey. This is our fantastic panel. Let's start with Misty. Misty, can you begin with a few opening words?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I'm so honored to have come together with such an incredible group of accomplished Black artists. And I know how extremely raw we are all, not only us on this panel, but people watching are still feeling in these moments because of what's happening in the world. So I decided, which I rarely do, to write down some words that I'm going to say just to kick off the panel, just because I wanted to be as clear as possible. In the larger picture of what's taking place in the world right now, I recognize that dance is only a small portion of the conversation about systemic racism, but in my eyes, it is an important one, as the institution of ballet reflects the very systems that are now being railed against. Mainstream ballet companies are somewhat unique in today's world in that instead of exploiting Black and brown people, as is the case in many industries, we have simply been excluded. Further, many ballet companies hide behind the intended consequences of the systems designed to limit people of color's access to things like funding, exposure, training, and equipment to justify this exclusion. At this very moment, we are at a pivotal point in history when the conversation of racial injustice is again at the forefront. It's made me ask myself, what is my role as a Black woman? What is my role as a Black dancer? And what is my role as a Black woman in ballet? Throughout my 20 years with American Ballet Theater, This discussion has become my life's work. It is easy for me because my experiences as a Black ballerina and a Black woman in America so closely mirror each other. There are varying forms of privilege in the world that we all need to be mindful of and empathetic to. I acknowledge that being biracial and or lighter skinned is a privilege both in the world and in ballet. But at the end of the day, I am unapologetically a Black woman. And my complexion does not exclude me or anyone who looks like me, no matter the shade, from discrimination in either space. So I have used my platform to speak out about the lack of diversity and inclusion in ballet, sometimes to people's displeasure, but I made a decision a long time ago that I refuse to be silent. Silence does not bring about change. I am here through hard work and the fight of those who came before me, whose shoulders I firmly stand on. Through every Black ballet dancer, every Black dancer who has been told no, that they weren't good enough, that they didn't have the right body type, that they didn't have the right skin tone, that they could never be the Swan Queen, the Firebird, Kitri, Coppelia, Giselle, Juliet, and Clara, that they could never be a classical ballerina. I am proud and humbled to be here today to say none of that was ever true. That's just what they wanted you to believe. That's why every time I have the privilege to take the stage as a principal dancer, those who came before me take the stage too. My very existence in this space is a tribute to groundbreaking ballerinas like Joan Myers-Brown, who was with us today. Thank you, Joan, for all that you have done and continue to do to make sure our faces are seen, our voices are heard, and our bodies are included on the stage. I also had the privilege to touch the hand and heart of history, getting to know Raven Wilkinson, who mentored me as both a ballerina and a Black woman. As a Black ballerina in the 1950s, Raven came face to face with the perils of very overt and direct racism. So much so that she eventually had to leave her company in order to protect her life and to leave this country in order to have a career. I had the opportunity to learn from her and to be inspired by her, to be motivated by her. Times like now make me ask, what has changed in all these years? Certainly some things have improved. There are more dancers of color in more companies than ever. At my company, we have Calvin Royale III, a soloist, and the two of us were cast to perform the lead roles of Romeo and Juliet this spring, another historic milestone in ballet. But we have so much more to do, so much further to go. The day I hope we will all see is when a ballet performance with two Black lead dancers is no longer a historical marker. It should be, as it is with any other dancer who has the great opportunity to perform an iconic lead role, another eagerly anticipated wonderful afternoon or evening at the ballet, to see great beauty and artistry on the stage. The day I hope we all will see is when the story is not that a Black choreographer created a piece on a classical ballet company. Instead, the story is purely about the artistry of what was created and what makes the piece unique and exciting. The day I hope we all will see is when there are Black artistic directors, Black costume designers, Black production professionals, and Black executive directors at the highest levels of classical ballet. Not just because they're Black, but because they have the experience, the talent, the commitment, the vision, the passion, the excellence. Because they earned the opportunity. How do we make that happen? How do we make equality in dance a reality and not just a dream or an aspiration? It's going to take a lot more than just my voice, or even the 6 voices on this panel. It takes the work of all of us. That's why today's discussion gives me so much hope. Yes, we on this panel are the ones talking. But what's even more important is you're here listening. You see us, and that is a start.
Misty, that's it. Passion, it's deep, it's emotional, and Misty, silence does not bring about change. So let's get to talking here. Let's talk to the panel. Everybody, why now? And Misty just kind of touched on this. Why did you feel it was so important to take part in this panel tonight with the backdrop of what's unfolding in America right now, whether it was just last night in Atlanta or to Mr. George Floyd? Alicia, let's start with you.
Sure. Thank you, and thank you, Misty, for your words of truth and of encouragement. I think with the quiet and isolation that is a result of the COVID-19 crisis and the atrocities and injustices against Black bodies in full view, while everyone is watching the news and everyone is following emerging stories on social media, we are all hyper aware of what is happening in our world. And I think we all have had these quiet moments to sit with these images, terrible images, and to sit with ourselves, Black people and white people, and ask ourselves, how did we get here, and how are we still here? And at the same time, as a dancer, a director, and a teacher, I'm imagining all of our young people, especially our Black young dancers who have been at home for the last many weeks, devastated that they are trying to dance and maintain their technique and maintain their artistry and maintain their love for this thing through Zoom in their tiny spaces. And I know that they're wondering how these sort of things that are happening in the world and then the things that are happening on their day-to-day lives in their dance schools and in their dance studios are somehow related. And so it's difficult for me as an adult to take all of this in. It's difficult for me as an adult who has had some difficult and amazing experiences. So I wanted to take this moment to say to our young Black and brown dancers who are out there listening that we see you and we hear you, and all of us on this panel, although we've had different experiences, we understand. We understand because women like Miss Joan Myers Brown, she paved the way for me and for many of us. And we take that legacy and responsibility very seriously. So while we have the attention of our entire dance community, we need to take the advantage of the moment and of the movement and to talk about the real inequities and systemic racism that is pervasive in the world of concert dance.
And that's it, Alicia. You're right. We were all forced because of COVID to stay in, stay still. And in staying still, ironically, it shook everything up. Clifton, what are your thoughts? Why are you here today?
Basically, I feel like this is just a moment where people are open and willing to listen. People of all colors, not just white people, and it seems like people are receptive, and I think that's where change starts as well. Receptive to be empathetic. I feel like it's easy to say that people express their experiences, and especially Black people, they're heard over and over by people who don't have the same experiences, and it's easy for it to turn into white noise, and it's just something that okay, that's another angry Black person or disgruntled Black person for this reason or that reason, as opposed to actually hearing something that makes somebody think something is wrong in the world. Maybe I can do something about it, but it's an experience that I'll never have myself, but it's important to always be sensitive to it. And I think people are very sensitive right now in a number of ways. We're sensitive in the way that Missy was saying, just feeling very raw from years of dealing with seeing these injustices and feeling like, Black people are kind of paid into a corner, and you just never know if you know, a black person gets stopped by the police, what's going to happen? But on the other hand of sensitivity, I feel like people who are not people of color are in a place to be aware and sensitive as well, sensitive to receiving and sensitive to listening. And I think that's where it kind of has to start. It has to be at both ends. It has to come from the bottom, from the people, and a shift in the way we look at things, and then also from the top. You know, that's the only way that it can be a lasting change. We can't necessarily dictate, you know, no more racism. That doesn't do anything. People still think the way that they think. But I think this is just a moment of sensitivity to take advantage of.
And Ms. Myers-Brown, you have seen moments with all your wisdom and life experience similar to this, or and you why do you think it's important and you wanted to be a part of this? Ms. Myers-Brown, just unmute yourself. Can someone? We can't hear you.
Well, I'm so sorry.
There you are.
I'm here to hear and to listen.
We want to hear you. Go ahead.
Thinking that having lived through the World War, the Korean War, the AIDS epidemic, the Depression, and everything, and I'm like, why are we still having this conversation? Why is it still necessary? Why are we talking about the same things that should have changed years ago? And did it take an awful position that we're in today to ignite it again? I had the same discussion, 1948, 1982, over and over again. It's time. And I think the time now to talk about it and hope that a change happens, that it doesn't continue 10 years from now, we're still having the same conversation.
Do you think this is a different time? Do you think this is unique?
I'm not sure yet. I'm waiting to see. And my dancers ask me every day, what are we doing next? I say, I really don't know. I don't know. We have to hope and pray that things will change.
Okay, I'm with you. Earl, can you weigh in? We got to hear you, darling. Unmute yourself.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
Again, I loved hearing from everyone today. Misty, you made me cry. Like, that was just food for the soul. Thank you. You know, I think it's in the title of my dance, my voice, Black Hearts Are Burning. You know, my dance, you know, that expression that we love so much. My voice, self-worth, you know, I'm Black and with no apologies needed. You know, Black Hearts Are Burning. When I see these fires, like last night, what happened in Atlanta, them burning down, the people burning down Wendy's, I think it's more than just fire. I see Black souls dying, running, all of these years, and they're tired of running. We're tired of hiding. We're tired of being apologetic. Get your knee off of my spirit. Mm-hmm. You know, get your knee off of my spirit. I've seen Ms. Brown, I've seen your company so many times. I mean, Philadelphia. I love it. Mr. Ailey's company, Dallas Black Dance Theater. Like, these are the legacies that are giving all of us this voice. And what gives me the hope is that now there's a younger generation in the streets that is so diverse. And I'm praying that a lot of these people will end up in these companies and will take the torch and educate all of us to know that if there's no justice for one, there can be no justice for any of us.
Right. Sick and tired.
Yeah.
Matthew, can you jump in?
Sure. I feel that it's about seizing the moment. I feel we have a captive audience as far as I know. Like, I've never seen a time like this where we have a captive audience for people to speak, for people to use their voices, and like what was already said in the panel, for us to listen to each other. Earl brought up the younger generation. They're heavy on my heart. And one of the reasons why I'm showing up on this platform is one, to inspire, to be able to hopefully help educate, share ideas, different perspectives, and also be here to listen to the other people on this panel. It's a privilege to be here with you all. So I'm also here, hopefully leaving educated and with some own inspiration of my own to help the generation and move the movement forward.
Alicia, let me ask you this. Can you share with us, that when you realized, when you knew that race mattered, that aha moment, both personally and professionally, and kind of what did you do with that?
Yes.
That can be a very powerful moment.
Yes, I think I've had many aha moments along sort of my trajectory of my training as a young person in my career, but I can talk about my first aha moment with race as a dancer. And I grew up wanting to be a ballerina. I declared it as soon as I could talk that I was going to be a ballerina. And my parents, I come from, I'm a biracial kid. I was a biracial kid. I'm a biracial woman who identifies as a Black woman. I I never I never saw race really when I was younger, and I was so lucky to be exposed to a lot of professional companies as a young person. My parents saw the passion in me, and so they took me to the theater. My grandmother would take me to the theater, and I saw ballet very often as a very young person. But I can remember when I was 12 years old. I'm from Columbia, Maryland, and every year there was a festival there called the Columbia Festival for the Arts. And during this festival, they brought in the stars of of the U.S. Of American dance in ballet. And I remember I was sitting there with my dad, as we used to take daddy-daughter dates to see the ballet. And I remember the curtain rose, and I saw something that I had never seen before in person. And that was a brown ballerina in a tutu. And something in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, in all my 12 years of loving this thing, I never realized that I've never seen a brown ballet dancer on the stage in front of me. And I had one of those moments that was like, she is me. I am she. Oh my gosh. And I just remember crying. And, that woman was Christina Johnson, and her partner was Donald Williams, and they were there representing the Dance Theater of Harlem, an organization that changed my life and gave me so much pride in who I am and my talents and my abilities. And so that moment was so transformative for me in a really positive way.
Clifton, can you share your thoughts on this? That moment when you were like, wow.
Yeah, mine really, it didn't come from dance so much. I also am a biracial person. I was raised, well, my father's Black, my mother's white, but I don't know my father. I did not grow up with him. So I grew up with my family is white, basically. And race was never really addressed growing up. And so in every studio I went to, which was many, lots of times I was the only person of color, but I was also the only male student in class. So certain things that happened, for better or worse, where I was different. I don't have many instances as far as growing up, but I attribute to them to me being the only guy in class. And then, and lots of times I think, like I did see DTH when I was younger, but I think I feel like racism almost seemed theoretical to me because I almost felt like I was outside of it, because I didn't feel like it was stopping me from doing anything that I wanted to do necessarily, as a young person. And then I wanted to dance with Ailey, which is a Black organization. So in that respect, I was like, it's not stopping me from doing what I want to do because I want to dance with Ailey. But the first time that I really felt like racism was not theoretical, or I was a part of it, was when I was on tour with the company. I think it was my first year. I was with a fellow dancer in the company, a friend named Amos Mechanic. And we were in a department store, and a security guard came up to us and said, please follow me, and took us into the back room. And my friend Amos was was really objecting to it, because he's like, well, why do you need us? And I was like, oh, I'm sure, there's some reason. And being as naive as I was, and it was just apparently, he said there's been some things stolen, and we've heard it's two black men. So basically, we fit the description, as happens. And once, Amos, my friend, heard that, he was irate, and he just immediately saw the racism and injustice. And I still, at the moment, was like, oh, it's a mistake. It took me a while to think on that, to realize, oh, this is what I hear about it, and I'm a part of it just like anyone else. Like, I'm a black person in the world. Like, no one sees me as not a person of color just because, that's my background or how I was raised. I guess however you say that. But that's the moment that it became real to me. And it made me think, oh, I wonder how many instances in my past were racism, and I didn't realize it. So that made me, start to look at everything in the past and in my future differently.
Yeah, going forward, how did that change kind of that, what you were a naive kid, you didn't realize, and then going forward, that can really shape your future.
No, exactly. I feel like it's not the first thing that I jump to when something happens to me that I don't like, or something, that I would feel is unjust. I don't have an example right now, but it's always in the back of my head, saying, know that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
It's not purely, the content of your character, so to speak.
There you go. Earl, can you talk about that moment? Did you have that moment? Was it in the world of dance, or was it something outside, like Clifton just talked about?
Thank you. I had two moments. I'll be quick about it. One outside of dance, in elementary school. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, originally. And in elementary school, I remember this white kid called me nigger. And it's like third grade, fourth grade. And I didn't really know what that meant at that time. And I was gone to a predominantly white school during that time. But then in junior high and high school, I went to a school that was more black. And that's when I realized through my school, through the school population, what that meant. Because maybe my parents were trying to protect me. I don't know. But in my household, that word wasn't used a lot. I actually heard it in school. And then in junior high and high school, I was like, oh, and it made me think back to elementary. That's what this word means. So that was an aha moment. And then the other one was, I was fortunate enough to work with Gus Solomons, Jr., one of the icons of modern dance. He had an all-male dance ensemble at one point, and we were touring around the country. And I remember growing up in North Carolina having that feeling of like Clifton, of being in a store and feeling somebody's on your shoulder watching you. I'm familiar with that approach. But it was Gus Solomon's dream that followed me throughout the store, and I noticed it. And at the time, I was like, is he following me because he thinks I'm stealing something, or I might steal something? And this was outside of the studio, but yet we were on tour. And so, but then years later, I was thinking, maybe he was following me to protect me. So it was a 50-50. Until he doesn't know this, that I know that. I've never discussed this with him ever. But hearing Cliff's story and everyone made me think about, like, was he being a protector at that moment, or was he, because of the way the world is, I didn't know which way to go with it. And I never brought it up to him, but that was definitely a moment as well of like how people perception is everything.
Joan, can you please give us your, I'm sure, I mean, I got to hear you, sweetie. Joan, can you unmute?
Okay, I keep forgetting that I'm listening.
Don't worry.
I was in 1948 in high school.
Okay.
My gym teacher, who had been with the Captain Littlefield Company, invited me to the ballet club because she said I should dance. I'm like, oh, I can dance. So when I got to the ballet club, there was nobody black. Everybody was white. And they looked at me like, well, why are you here? And so I said, oh, if I got to try this, I better go find a dancing school. And I went to every school in Philadelphia that were not taking black youngsters, being told, oh, you can't come to this school. So that's when I decided I was going to be a ballet dancer. So that was my first aha. The second, I was with a part of a national service organization to address dance in America, and being told that they weren't interested. We don't support them. We don't we don't buy, subscribe. We don't do this. We don't do the other. I said, well, I'll start my own organization. So I started IBD.
Boom. Build it and they will come. Don't wait for it. I love it. I love it. Matthew, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you faced as a person of color in terms of access and entry into the world of dance? Those big prime opportunities that clearly have set all of you apart. What are in terms of access and entry?
Well, to be honest, because I was part of the Ailey company since I was like 18, a lot of those challenges weren't there. A lot of the challenges as far as access and support as a Black male artist was kind of part of the fabric of the organization. So I can say I'm honestly blessed in that sense. But I do have to say that there is, even within the company, or even if I take myself outside the company, sometimes you do guesting jobs and you do performances at ballet galas and things like that. There's an expectation that's almost twice as high for other people or other dancers that you feel. Sometimes you put it on yourself, but then also we're very intelligent people and we're sensitive people, and we can tell when good is not good enough. You must be extraordinary just to fit in. And I had to take that and use it to my benefit and not allow it to deter me from moving forward and going into places that I'm not used to dancing, or dancing with people who are not used to dancing. Even the idea of being a modern dancer on maybe like a classical gala, like all those things kind of come with the pressure of having to be not just good as, but almost like having to be twice as good to get into the door. That I would say would be a challenge, but I'm blessed to say within my own organization, I've had nothing but support in that situation.
And do you feel that's the exception and not the norm? The Ailey organization, which is I'm in love, have been since I was a little girl, and what they've built. Do you think it's the exception?
I definitely feel it's the exception, and that's part of the problem. Yep. And it has to become the norm.
Yep. Misty, let me ask you this. When it comes to dominant images, the limited kind of definitions of what a dancer should look like, very specific physical aspects. How did that affect your career? You kind of touched on this before in the open, and your ability to move forward.
Yeah, I think that it's something that took me some time to decipher, the coded language that is not just common in ballet, but it's common in the world for Black and brown people. But when you're dealing with a subjective art form and something that is a visual art form, it's very easy to get away with, making it about your aesthetic and your body proportions. But I think the thing that a lot of ballet companies throughout history get wrong is that they categorize Black dancers as all having the same body type. And so, probably two years into my professional career was when I realized, well, I have very similar bodies to the people around me, or, my bust is smaller than some of these girls when I'm being told my bust is too big, my legs are too big, and in the end, it was like, my skin is too brown. And I think that once I deciphered that coded language, it almost freed me. It gave me more of an understanding. And I think that the way I approached it was to try and educate the people around me rather than feeling defensive or getting upset, but just to be as transparent as I could be. And I think that's what's so positive about this moment and having this conversation is that, from just internally, from what I'm experiencing in the ballet world and at American Ballet Theater, this is the first time all ears are open. And I think this is the first time that I can be as transparent as possible. And I think this is why it's important to just take advantage of this moment and seize on it.
Alicia, I see you shaking your head. Why don't you jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think so many Black and brown ballerinas have had so many similar experiences. I think my experience also coupled with the fact that I'm way over 6 feet tall on point. When I was younger, and definitely when I started training in more prestigious programs over the summer and competing on an international level, that's when those things really came into high relief. That you're very different from the rest, from what we see. And as I said, when I was 17, I joined the Dance Theater of Harlem, so I think those things became my strength. But what I started to hear from those outside of Dance Theater of Harlem was, she is excelling because her body is like a white person's body, or because her feet are already very flexible, or that she has high extensions. And I remember people saying, "You are the Black Sylvie Guillen." And while I know that people would say that to me as a compliment, there's always this like little piece that's like, why can't I just be Alicia? Why do I have to be the Black version of? But I think that, I've always tried to demonstrate excellence through my artistry, through my work ethic. And just a little story about access is that now, as I pointed out in the beginning, all of us are in leadership roles. I've had many times that I've had to step away from dance. I've had 20 years as a professional dancer, 6 years teaching in higher education. I have 2 degrees from top tier companies. I remember when top tier schools, sorry. I remember when I got the job as the director of the dance division at the Juilliard School. And the person that I was working under at the time in a well-known conservatory said to me, "Oh, congratulations, you got to pull your minority card."
Oh, Lord.
And I didn't know what to say in that moment. Now I have a million things, because hindsight is always 20/20. So I have a million things that I would like to say to that comment. But here it is that as accomplished as you can be, the hard thing to carry is that so many people will never see what that work was, what that day-to-day struggle was, what that passion was, what those difficult conversations with your parents, with your sister circle, with your friends, with your director was to get you to where you need to be. And then even then, it's not seen. And so now that I have the ability to bring people along, I am very careful with my language, every word that I speak to my students, because I know that it matters. And when more brown faces become leadership, just like Misty said in her opening remarks, we're going to see some amazing things happen in this dance world.
From the top down. We're talking tippy top.
Yes.
Guys, this is definitely, we've all acknowledged this and we can all see it. This is a time of sweeping change. It's intergenerational. It's multi-ethnic. Let me ask you, Joan, what specific changes do you think need to be made in the world of dance to ensure more opportunities are available from, we've said, the top bottom for Black dancers?
Well, I want to talk about one thing that we skipped over. Please
jump in. Yes.
I don't care how far we've come. We're still not using our brown girls. Mm-hmm. And I think within our race, with our brown girls are still feeling that sometimes we're still too brown, mm-hmm. and that they want girls that will fit in. So I want to talk about IABD, because we had the auditions for the last 4 years to show people that run companies. We've had 21 major ballet companies come to look at Black girls, and look at Black girls of all shades and colors. to offer them jobs and positions. And for the first time in 4 years, we see more of our Black girls in companies, but they're still overlooking the brown girls. And we've got to change that to show that, again, we're talking about body shapes, body sizes. If we don't go past brown, we're going to be in trouble. Back in 1940, you had to be brown as a paper bag.
Right.
What are they using now?
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's something that has to be addressed, that Black girls are Black and that we want to use them. But also IABD, having all these auditions and make them come see that there are girls of color that are capable. We had 101 girls show up at the first IABD audition. Girls from Haiti dancing in the sand who want to be ballerinas. So we've got to make opportunities available for them. So that's something IABD is working hard to do. And it can't be just one. I look at Dance Magazine. Everybody's got a picture of a Black person there. Finally, some Black girls. I got one. We got to change that conception. We got to say that there are opportunities, as Misty and everyone else says, you're capable, give me the job.
Bam. I love it. I love it. I love it. Matthew, can you jump in? What are your thoughts about that? What needs to be changed to give these opportunities, that access, that getting in?
I would have to go to something that Misty also said in prior conversations. She talked about the board of directors of these organizations, because we have to talk money. We have to talk money will create opportunities. It will be able to employ the correct people who need to be in place in order to inspire, teach, nurture, mentor the Black young dancers. And I also feel that there also has to be more support for visionaries. And when I say that, I see someone like Earl Mosley as a visionary, but he's been hitting the pavement for I don't know how many years, not getting support in what he does as not only a mentor, a visionary, a place where he's actually developing young people. So when we have people, young people you can see them as potential visionaries, you have to have a support system. You have to have people gather around them and support them. And it takes money as well. So I really agree with the top, but also like going further than directors, going to board members and getting the money to finance all these ideas that we're talking about.
Or when you hear Matthew just comment on what your hustle and your years put in, what do you think of that?
Well, it's like Alicia said as well. Sometimes people aren't going to see all of that work, but the people that need to see, the people that need to hear, if it gives you a sense of peace of mind at night when you go to sleep, I think sometimes that's the richness in the heart that can supplement maybe what the material way of what's considered to be successful. I definitely believe that lack of opportunity is our worst enemy, and exposure. And it would be nice if generosity could be implemented from the top down, so that everybody isn't just about self-preservation, but about trying to preserve all of us as one. That might be a pipe dream, but I'm not going to give up on it. And also, your frontliners in this part, to me, are the teachers. I want for teachers to have more ownership of themselves as people relating to younger people, not this separate teacher-student dichotomy that tends to happen. And I want more teachers of color teaching in ballet schools. More teachers of color teaching in ballet schools. I want more teachers of colors with 2 degrees like Alicia. I want more teachers of colors running another Juilliard in another state, so that our young people can see those people and aspire. And my excelsior in all of this is what I said the other night, is that when I see the protesters in the street, that gives me hope that everything that we're saying here can come to fruition. But at the end of the day, it's going to take the young people really, really, really not giving up and not being dismissed, not allowing the system, the systematic racism, the systematic injustices, the lack of equity shared amongst people of color, particularly, like Ms. Brown said, Black people, period. The disparities that COVID has shown, the disparities of Black people, period. These young people, if they really seize the moment, I believe they're going to be the ones to change. Even if, to Alicia's point, even if we can't see it, maybe the people behind us will be able to reap those rewards.
And Earl, I think you just touched on something that is important. I think Matthew had brought this up. We were chatting before a couple nights ago that yes, there is this passion of this younger generation, but we have folks who have traveled the road, Joan, and the senior generations are seeing these younger folks and getting a spark, but that needs to be not shaped in a negative way, but each generation needs to take and learn from each other at this point in order to succeed.
Yes, yes, yes. No, Ms. Brown?
Starting at the top, I want to say we have something in our favor now. Black women are running these major foundations, and Black men are running these major foundations that decide who gets the money. So I think we have to support and make sure that they keep those jobs and that they are there to support our companies, especially the community groups and the community things that are happening in our neighborhoods that produce those youngsters that we can hire and encourage. So we want to acknowledge those people that are getting those top jobs, like you say, Matthew. They got to be at the top and on our boards. And a lot of times they don't want to be on the black boards. So we got to reach out and make them come and support us.
But why do you suppose they don't want to be on the black boards?
Well, they want to rub shoulders with their peers. They want to get their claim. They want to be validated. We haven't learned yet that we got to reach back. And that's not something that's not part of our culture. You know, we've got to do better with our older people too, not just our young people. We got to change the way of thinking. We got to change the way that people make decisions in our world we live in. People wait for someone else to do it. We got to encourage people to do it themselves.
Can I time it right there with what you all are saying, Earl and Miss Brown, about the young people? But I feel what is so different about this moment is that the young people are teaching us right now. There is a call out culture right now that, for better or for worse, right now is forwarding our cause. Young people are getting on social media and saying enough and challenging others to understand and learn and find resources and then champion that cause. And I find it so inspiring. I'm learning from our young people how to use this platform even better as a voice, and to bring all of us along. So this intergenerational moment that we're experiencing is important because there is an anger there that I hope that is sustainable over a long period of time so that we can enact significant change, and that it's not just like a hashtag moment and then there's a new trend that happens and a new hashtag and we move on to something else. But that sustainability, I think, is going to be achieved by those who can hold the flame.
I think there's also, and we touched on this a bit, it's a multi-ethnic moment where folks outside the Black community genuinely, please tell me what I can do. Help me, guide me. What are your thoughts? And again, I want to stress, this is the first in a series of conversations with these wonderful folks. So we will have more, but as we wind it down, can you guys just touch on that?
Intergenerational. I just had to ask my 11-year-old granddaughter to get me on television, on the computer, so I could be part of the show tonight. Because again, they're born with it. They're born. You see, in the baby coaches and the strollers, the kids are on computers. So we've got to look back and make sure that we are not going backwards. They're helping us move forward. And I think that's really important, Alicia, and I appreciate you saying that.
Clifton, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just think we've talked about it a lot in the culture lately over the past like decade or so, but I feel like diversity is key. I feel like the less exoticized people of color are and the more commonplace, the more representation will naturally come. And I see it in like people's organizations that I admire, and like of course Earl is the king of this, and getting you know, great people on his team, and really caring about what they have to say, and knowing everybody comes from a different place. And I think that's the key. It takes effort now, of course, but hopefully, again, like I said, it won't be when it's less exoticized to be a Black person, one of many, or like the one Latino or the one Asian person. You're just another person. I feel like that's what we're going for.
Misty, do you want to give some closing remarks, some closing thoughts here?
I mean, I think that there's so much happening here, and I think that this is kind of like a boiling over for a lot of Black people. As Black Americans, every day of our lives is a protest. So this is not, like you were saying, Alicia, this shouldn't be, and I hope that it's not just a hashtag moment. I think that the hope in this moment that I see is that people are hearing us, and hopefully there are a very diverse group of people that are listening to us now. And I think that all we can do, as exhausting as it is to live every day of your life as a Black person in America, to know that all we can do is teach and be patient and communicate, and be as transparent as possible. And I think that's the only way that we can really, allow for people to understand where it is we're coming from. I mean, of course, you can go read books and but I think that listening and communicating is really key, and that's what gives me so much hope about this moment right here. And seeing that there's so many people on this panel that are running things, and that is what is going to make change when you have brown and Black people that are in there that have the ability and have the power to make change from within. And I'm so proud of all of you guys.
Yes, this definitely, guys, it's been an incredible, eye-opening conversation. But again, this is just the first in a series. It's long overdue. I was just thinking about, it has to happen at this time, because when you say it's not going to happen, then when is it right? It has to happen. Thank you, all of you, the panel. I know some of you have been sending in questions, and we will all answer your questions and comments in a timely manner. But for all of us, thank you for joining us. Come back. We look forward to seeing you all. And good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.